I'm a cab driver. I brought a pregnant stranger home and she claimed I'm the father. My wife didn't believe me and the DNA test revealed I'm sterile, but I've got 3 kids. It all started about a month before Christmas, 2025. I'd been working my tail off trying to make enough to cover the holidays. I drive a taxi, mostly around the airport, lots of passengers there, so it's a decent spot to work. It was a cold, rainy night, and I'd been at it since early in the morning. By around 9 p.m., I was ready to head home. That's when my last passenger hopped in. She looked rough. Her clothes were all wet from the rain and she was shivering like crazy. I could tell she was freezing, and to make it worse, the heater in my car wasn't working, so I asked her, "Where you headed, miss?" She said it was a street not too far from the airport. I pulled away from the airport and then stopped the car. I got out, opened her door, and handed her my jacket. "You look like you're freezing," I told her. As I did, I noticed her stomach. It was huge. She was pregnant. She looked up and said, "Thank you, sir, you're so kind." Then she got back in the car and we started driving again. I couldn't help myself. I had to ask, "Are you coming from another city or something?" I didn't get an answer at first, so I asked again. That's when I heard this quiet sobbing, soft, like she was trying to hold it in. I looked at her through the rearview mirror and I saw she was holding her hands over her mouth, crying but trying not to let it show too much. I decided not to say anything, figuring she needed her space. I was thinking to myself, maybe she's having problems with her husband. Maybe they argued before she left. Or maybe he's in another city and she's just coming here to stay with family for a bit. I didn't know, but one thing was clear. She had come from far away because she had this big bag of clothes with her. A minute passed and we were close to the street she'd told me to take. But then she asked, "Can you turn onto another street instead?" I was a little surprised, but I said, "Are you sure? That's going to make the fare go up a bit?" She just nodded, saying, "Okay," real quietly, like she was upset about something. So I turned onto the next street. Then she asked, "Could you stop by a store? I need to grab something." I parked, and while she went inside, I could see her through the store's glass door. She grabbed a loaf of bread and some eggs. When she handed her card to the cashier, I saw the cashier give it back. Her card was declined. Without thinking, I got out of the car, went inside, and took a look at her. I grabbed the eggs and bread, then handed the cashier my card. She tried to stop me, saying, "Sir, please, you don't have to do this. Don't make me feel worse." But I paid for it anyway and handed her the stuff. We got back in the car, and before I started driving again, I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. She couldn't have been older than 25, with black hair and eyes. I asked her, "Do you have anyone here in town?" She started sobbing again, and I asked, "Why are you crying? Why won't you answer me? I know you don't have money, but if I was a bad guy, I would have just left you here when I saw you couldn't pay for 3 eggs and a loaf of bread. Look, girl, I know you don't even have enough to pay for the taxi. I don't want to hurt you." She wiped her eyes and said, "I don't have anyone in this town. I'm all alone. When I got in your cab, I thought maybe I'd find somewhere to go, like a safe place to stay for the night. I don't know, somewhere like a hospital or somewhere where I could just sit and nobody would ask why I'm sitting there. I just need to rest and sleep. I haven't slept in 2 days." She started crying even harder. I didn't want to ask anything more because I felt like I was just making things worse. I'm a kind-hearted guy and I trust people too easily. That's one of my biggest mistakes. But I couldn't help myself. I had to know more, so I asked, "Don't worry, just tell me, where's your husband? Where's your family? Why are you here by yourself?" She looked at me, her eyes full of tears. "My husband passed away about 2 months ago. He got into a bad accident. I was 4 months pregnant when it happened. I don't have any family. I'm an only child, and I lost my mom and dad a long time ago." "But you look so young," I said. "How could you lose both your parents years ago? You can't be more than 25, right?" "I'm 24, she said. "Actually, I didn't lose them. They're still alive. They just kicked me out when I was 15. They were both addicted, and I had to live with my husband. He was 15 years older than me. He was 30 by the time I was 15. He raised me more like a dad than a husband. I don't know where my parents are now. I have nobody. It's just me, my baby, and me." She broke down sobbing, tears streaming down her face. I wanted to take her to a hotel, but I didn't have enough money. I'd been working hard to make ends meet, but I couldn't afford the hotel prices for her. So I asked one last question. "Why would you come here if you don't have anyone? What's going on?" She looked down, tears still rolling down her cheeks. "I came here to visit an old friend, but I don't know if she even remembers me after all these years. I'm hoping she can help me find a job. I gave up my house and everything I had to one of my husband's creditors. He took my place and my furniture in exchange for the debt he owed. Do you know where she lives or her address? I can take you there," I asked. She shook her head. "It's night now and I know the area and the address, but I can't remember how to get there. I'll have to come back tomorrow when it's light out. I've only been to her place a couple of times before. She used to be my neighbor before I came here." "So, where are you gonna stay tonight?" I asked. She just sobbed again and whispered, "I don't know." At that moment, I knew I had to do something. I wanted to show her some kindness, so I made what was probably the toughest decision I've ever made, or maybe the best. "You can come stay at our place tonight," I said. "You're like a daughter to me. Don't worry. Tomorrow I'll take you to your friend's house. You'll eat something, get some rest, and take care of yourself. For your baby." I smiled at her, trying to make her feel a little better. Her eyes lit up with relief, and for the first time that night she looked happy. She hesitated for a moment, but then agreed to come with me. "I'm married, I have 3 kids, and my wife is really kind-hearted. She's gonna be so happy to meet you. I'm sure she'll want to help," I said, trying to ease her mind. Before I got home, I called my wife. "Hey, babe, I'm almost home. Do we need anything? Are we good on everything?" She asked, "What do you mean by everything? Is someone coming over?" I glanced over at my passenger and I could tell she was worried. She was staring at me, so I decided to calm her nerves. I told my wife, "I've got a guest with me. She came from out of town to visit a friend. She's pregnant too, and she doesn't have anyone here. She only knows the area, but she doesn't have the address. She can't find her friend's house at night." Then I tried to laugh, to make it seem more casual, but it didn't work. My wife still sounded suspicious. "Why do you bring a stranger into her house? How do you even know she's pregnant? What if she's lying? What if she's a thief, or worse, a killer? Why are you always so naive, Jason? You're almost 50. Stop acting like a 10-year-old. Then she hung up on me. I just pretended she was still talking. "Thanks, babe. I knew you'd be happy." There was no one on the line. I was just trying to keep the situation from stressing out my passenger. After that, I hung up and put the phone in my lap. When we got home, I unlocked the door and went inside. My passenger was standing by the door, looking a little shy. That's when my wife walked up and greeted her with a warm hello and welcomed her into our house. "What a beautiful young lady," my wife said, and the girl giggled and said, "Thank you." She sat down on the sofa and I went to the kitchen to grab some water and see what my wife had prepped for dinner. But before I even got there, my wife rushed in right behind me. "But why did you bring her home? Don't you think you're being a little too trusting, Jason?" she asked, clearly frustrated. I tried to lighten the mood, so I joked around a bit. "Isn't she a beautiful young lady? How can you be the double-faced Angelina?" I laughed playfully to help ease the tension. I knew how to make her smile. Then I kissed her on the cheek and asked, "So, what do we have for dinner, Miss Beautiful?" "We've got pizza coming," she replied. I called the restaurant. "I'm too tired tonight after the gym. Let me get our guests some coffee, Jason," she added. They were chatting so easily and friendly, and for a moment I found myself wondering, what if I had married someone like Angelina when I was younger? Maybe we'd have a daughter the same age as my passenger. Just then the doorbell rang. I went to answer it. It was the pizza guy. I grabbed the 6 pizzas and brought them inside. My kids were bouncing around, excited to eat. I handed them their pizzas and they ran off to their rooms to enjoy it with each other. I brought the remaining 3 pizzas to the table so we could all eat together. While we were eating, my wife asked the passenger, "Do you miss your husband?" The passenger replied, "No." I was taken aback. I looked at my wife, then at her, waiting for her to ask, "Why not?" That's when the passenger said, "Because he's always with me. He's by my side, always taking me wherever I want to go, making all my dreams come true." My wife smiled at her. "You're so kind," she said. "I can tell you loved your husband a lot. It's clear you haven't forgotten him." The passenger nodded. "I'll never forget him. His baby's with me all the time." My wife reached out, took her hands, and hugged her. She was so sweet and compassionate, I could tell she meant it. I told them, "I'll let you two have some time to talk, and I'm going to eat my pizza with the girls in their room. Good night, everyone." Then I turned to Angelina. "You can sleep next to our guest. She might feel more comfortable. I'll crash in the kids' room if you're okay with that. We only have 2 rooms, so there's not much room for guests." Angelina smiled. "No, you sleep in our room. We'll sleep here. We've got some girly talks ahead, right?" They both laughed together. I headed to our room with my pizza. We ate and then fell asleep. The next morning, everything had changed. When I woke up and stepped out of the room, I heard shouting, "Don't lie to me, bitch! What the hell are you talking about? Get out of our house!" I was thinking, what the hell is going on? I walked into the living room and saw Angelina and my passenger in the middle of an argument. Then, out of nowhere, the passenger ran up to me and hugged me like she'd known me for a million years. "Jason," she said, "she's saying I'm lying. She doesn't believe the baby's yours. She thinks I'm just your secret lover." I pushed her off me. "What are you talking about?" Just then, Angelina threw her bag in a vase right at me. It missed by inches and I honestly thought I might have been hit. She started screaming nonsense. "You lying bastard. You traitor. Did you really lie to me? You brought this woman into our house last night and said she was just a passenger, but turns out she's your lover and she's carrying your baby. You disgusting piece of trash. I knew something was off with you from the start. All those late nights, huh? So all those times you said you were with passengers, you were actually banging this whore?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing, what I was seeing. At first, I thought it was a nightmare. I tried to wake myself up, close my eyes, open them again, but nope, it was real. That's when the passenger started yelling at Angelina. "He always told me he didn't like you. He said once the baby came, he was going to divorce you. He said you were grumpy, bad-tempered, and looked like a witch. He was right, though. He deserves someone young and beautiful like me. He's been ditching you every night to be with me. So, don't stress too much, darling." That's when it hit me. I was in a trap. That so-called passenger wasn't some homeless, abandoned woman with no family or husband. She was a fraud, someone who wanted to ruin my life and force me into believing I was the father of her child. Me, a guy who barely even knew her, and I didn't even know her name. I snapped, "Shut the fuck up, get out of my house now. What kind of disgusting, filthy woman are you? Is this how you repay my kindness? By lying to my wife and trying to destroy my life? I don't even know who the hell you are. You're just a fraud, trying to wreck everything I've got. Get the hell out of my house before I call the cops." She just sat there on the couch, looking all calm and twisted. "I'm gonna have our baby, and you need to take responsibility for it," she said. "How do you not know my name? You've been coming to me every night, holding me, so don't act like you don't know me." That's when Angelina slapped me, hard. "I hate you," she said. "Angelina, don't you get it? She's lying. Do you believe me, or do you trust this filthy, scheming woman who just showed up out of nowhere? I swear to God, I didn't cheat on you. Let's get rid of her, or call the cops. You're the mother of my 3 kids. How could I ever betray you? Please, don't believe her. I'm begging you." But she wasn't having it. "I've had my suspicions for a while. You're lying to me. I found a condom in your pocket not too long ago. I know what I saw. You've been cheating on me. I'm calling the cops and you'll take a DNA test so I know you didn't do anything wrong." "I swear, it's not like you think," I said, trying to stay calm. "Let's get through this without making a scene. We'll throw this woman out, no drama, and avoid any embarrassment. Please, my love, just trust me." I begged Angelina to believe me, but she didn't. That's when my heart shattered into a million pieces. How could she not believe me? How could she not see that I loved her more than I loved myself? I worked from sunup to sundown, doing everything I could to make her feel safe and comfortable. That's when I broke down, tears pouring down my face. Angelina just looked at me and said, "Are you crying because of your guilty conscience, because you've been cheating on me all this time? With a 24-year-old girl who could be your daughter? Not a lover, but a whore." I lost it. I yelled at her, slammed my fist into the wall. "Why don't you believe me?" I shouted. "She's lying, Angelina. I don't even know her name. If she wasn't pregnant, I swear I'd throw her out of here right now." "Why don't you believe me, my love?" I begged, my voice breaking with tears. Then the so-called passenger piped up, "I'm not going anywhere. I'm staying right here until the DNA test results come back. This is my home now, the house of my husband and the father of my baby." I couldn't take it. I rushed at her, ready to snap. But before I could, Angelina stepped in front of me, yelling, "Are you seriously going to hurt a pregnant woman? The woman you got pregnant? You're the one who's unfaithful, and you're going to pay for all of this. We're going to the lab for that DNA test. One call to the cops, and I'm leaving this house with my kids. I can't live under the same roof with a whore and a traitor like you." We got ourselves ready and headed to the lab for the DNA test. The technician told us the results would be ready in 3 to 7 days. I slipped her some extra cash and promised her I'd have the results in 2 days. When we got back home, Angelina started packing her things. I begged her, kissed her feet, telling her not to leave me, but she didn't care. She just looked at me coldly and said, "If that baby's yours, you're gonna regret it. I'll take the kids and make sure you never see them again, never, not even for a second, for the rest of your life." I was done. I took the so-called passenger and booked a hotel for her. On the way there, I threatened her, saying, "As soon as those test results come back, I'm suing you for fraud. I don't care what happens to that baby, but you'll be locked up for what you've done. I'm taking your ID and keeping it in my bag. Once the results come back, get ready to see me in court. I'm filing this complaint today, and you won't be able to run from it." That same day, I filed the complaint attaching all the ID documents and the DNA test request. I knew the results were coming, and I knew they'd prove everything. Back at home, I kept asking myself, where did all this hell come from? Why did I have to get tangled up in this mess? What I didn't realize was that this was actually going to be the greatest blessing of my life. A wake-up call from God, showing me the truth about everything around me, and revealing who the real traitor and the real scammer were. Those 2 days felt like hell. Not hearing from her, just waiting. When the test results finally came in, Angelina and I went to the lab. She looked at me and sneered, "Why didn't you bring your slut with you?" I snapped back, "Shut up, Angelina. The test results are ready right now. They just need to print them out. You'll see how little trust you had in me. That woman's still at the hotel, and I filed a complaint against her just 2 days ago. The law's gonna handle her soon enough." The operator looked at both of us and asked me, "Mr. Smith, are you married?" I glanced at her and smirked. "Yes, she's my wife. The wife who made me come here for this DNA test because she didn't trust me, even after having 3 kids together." The operator looked at me with sympathy. "You have children?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. 3 kids, 6, 15, and 17. We've been married for 20 years. Angelina snapped at the operator. "Why are you asking such stupid questions? Just give us the result. Is it positive or negative?" The operator handed us the result, and we looked at it together. I swear, it felt like the world just came crashing down. What I saw was impossible. I was infertile. The test results said I couldn't have kids. So how the hell did I have 3 children? I turned to Angelina and said, "So you're the real whore, huh? You're the one who's been lying to me for 20 years. Who were you with? Who are the fathers of my kids? Tell me, you bitch." I was in shock, trying to piece together this twisted puzzle. How could I have 3 kids when I couldn't even father one? But that wasn't even the worst of it. When I went to the hotel to check on that woman, see what was going on with her, turns out she had killed herself. That was just the beginning of everything. To be continued.